as the principal at Lakewood Elementary. And we're going to just focus on 3 of the tools that I use. And I've used all 3 of these for about 6 or 7 years now and had a lot of luck with them. So I want to just share ones that these are vetted, and I've used them for a lot of years with my staff to make sure that we get the most out of all of our meetings and that they're organized and efficient. So the first one I want to show you guys is what I use for site-based meetings. When I first started as principal, our site-based policy stated that we had to, of course, have paper agendas, and we had to post them on a bulletin board somewhere in the school for so many days before the meeting, et cetera. And I was like, wow, there's just got to be a better and more efficient way to do that. So we did change over several years ago to doing all of our site-based agendas and minutes on a blog. And so if you click on the link up there, for those of you that are in the presentation, it's going to take you to our Lakewood Elementary Site-Based Council blog. And I'm just going to show you a few things on here, and we can talk about how to set one up for your school if there's people that are interested in seeing that, because it's really easy to do. But Blogspot is, of course, Google friendly, and you can single sign on with your Google account. I believe they're even owned by Google. So everything's real Google friendly inside of Blogspot. And I was able to snag the address lakewoodsbdm.blogspot.com to make it super easy for me to have my name inside of my address, which was super great. And we look at the blog, we use the same format. You can see over here on my archive, we've been using this since 2015. So it's worked well for us now for, looks like, almost 7 years. And that's how we've done site-based meetings that entire time. So each month, you can see this is our December agenda. We have our agenda, and we are a member of KASC here at Lakewood Elementary, the Kentucky Association for School Councils, and they send out like an agenda template every month if you're a member, and I pretty much use that template as much as I can, take out what doesn't apply to us that month and add in some other things. But you can see that this template is very familiar for anyone else that is a KSC member. And I'll just copy and paste that agenda in there, take out what I need and don't need, etc. And then you can see that the agenda is already hyperlinked with all of the reports that we're going to discuss at that meeting. So when my site-based members show up, either in person or when we were doing the pandemic, we were doing these online, they could still access everything. We just pull up we get all the members a Chromebook out at the meeting, parent members as well. We pull up the website and we just run through our agenda completely digitally, which saves us, of course, a lot of printing, because we used to print every single one of these reports, print the agenda, and have printed copies of it for everyone in the meeting. And anytime even a visitor comes, we can get them a Chromebook and then they click through everything with us, because it is a public blog. So anyone can access those files at any time. But you can see we go, we can do the budget report. We can click on that and it's just going to pull up the budget and we'll be able to see that. Hold on just a second here. I'm going to move this. Anyway, then when we get done with the budget, we can go into reports. So we have our different committee reports. They're all hyperlinked. If a committee didn't meet, just put no meeting and there's no hyperlink. And then of course we get our good old CSIP approval last month. So all the different pieces of that as PDF files are all linked up in there. Additionally, on the blog, we also link up all of our current policies along the toolbar on the left. So we have like a live version of all of our bylaws and policies at all times. And we also keep our most recent school improvement plan linked up there and a link to our school's home webpage. So just a really neat and tidy way to keep up with all things site-based. And to create a blog is real simple. You just go to blogspot.com and say that you want to create a blog. And then you can hopefully get a domain that you would like. Of course, I've already got a blog, so it's still keeping me on that. But if I wanted to make a new blog altogether, let's see if it'll take me to the place to do that. Here we go. New blog. So I click on that little thing. I would just create a new one. And then the only thing I really ever do in here once you get your layout, because it goes through a process when you create a new blog, for setup and what background you want and that kind of information. And then once you get it set up and going, the only thing you ever need is the post. And so like when I'm ready to make a new post for a new month, like if I was ready to make my January agenda, then I could just click on new post and it brings up, kind of looks like Microsoft Word almost, or maybe Google Docs, and just type and cut and paste things into there and hyperlink your different documents that you're going to reference during the meeting. So site-based meetings made easy right there with just keeping it all inside of a blog. Any questions about using Blogspot for site-based before we head on to our next topic? All right, great. So the next tool is finding a way to get your agendas ready to go for any kind of meeting that you're going to have. The biggest tip is choose a format that you like and that your staff likes and stick with it for an entire year. Don't try to like change your format mid-year and get everybody all frustrated. Even if you don't love it that school year, stick with it for the rest of the year and then change it for the next year, because it just helps people to always have that same template, that same format moving forward for the whole school year, so they know where to find information. Now you can have different formats for different kinds of meetings, and you'll see that over there in my samples. So like I'll have one format if we're having like a whole day professional development, or our district has like professional learning days where we spend the day, working on different things or having parent teacher conferences or whatever. But you can see there's a sample agenda for a day. There's a sample faculty meeting agenda, and then there's also a sample PLC agenda. And all three of those look a little bit different and are used two of them use Google Slides, and then one of them is made in Google Docs. If you're using any kind of agenda, the key thing to make sure that people know that the meeting is important and information is important is to give them access to that file at least a day ahead of time if you can. That doesn't mean that you can't continue to add to the file even right up to when the meeting starts, but it's important that they see it in advance so it's not like a surprise to them when they get there, like here's how much stuff we have to try to cover in our hour-long faculty meeting today. That way they know in advance, I really need to plan for this amount of time to stay after school because this looks like some deep conversation. And then always include the why, especially on your day-long agendas and your sample faculty meeting agendas. And we'll see that in these examples that we're going to look at. So the sample day agenda, you can see I always use the same template. These little images right here, if we want to get into a side conversation about those in just a second, we can. I make all of my images in Canva, so we can talk about how to do that and how easy Canva is to use to make a branding image for your school. But I always include branding images in all of my sample agendas, especially ones that are done in slides. But that's our school's vision statement, Lead, Learn, Roar. So you would see that in every professional learning day agenda for the whole year. They're always going to see our vision and be reminded of that. So we always have the agenda, and then we normally have some kind of motivational video or discussion, and we always remind ourselves what our vision is and talk about our school's goals, which is what the scorecard is. But you can see that why statement right here on this slide. So our district has instructional focuses for each month. So we need to talk about those so we can prepare for them. And then why are we doing this and how are we going to do it? And so you can see that on that slide. And then again, we're going to talk about data. Why are we doing that? We have the why statement on there. It's really important that everybody knows why are we spending time talking about the things that are on today's agenda. And that's why that statement is on slides when we're changing topics. So here again, we're going to work on the CSIP. Why are we doing this? Why do we need to spend time working on the CSIP? So this tells people why the meeting is important and also keeps things nice and organized and efficient for the teachers. And with this agenda, you can see the slideshow template allows for one side to have the why, the other side to have the how or the step-by-steps. So this one is one of the free slide presentations that you can use a theme from slides. It's not one that I created on my own. It's just one that's in here already and easy to manipulate and use. Okay. So there's professional learning day sample, a faculty meeting agenda. This is one from this school year. Now you're going to notice a big change in the color this year because we have a theme this year at our school to be out of this world leaders. So all of our faculty meeting agendas this year are kind of black with this this image from Canva. Again, out of this world leaders being our theme this year. And so that image is always going to be on our faculty meeting agendas for this year. Then again, we have here, why are we talking about this? What are the important information? And state assessment data, why are we talking about this? What is the important information and how are these things linked up? Okay. Then sometimes there's just general information like, you know, we're having a fall festival, so here's your information. But then our report cards, our district formed a committee. This is why we're talking about this, why I need your input kind of thing. So you can see there in a sample faculty meeting. And then this is the one that is different, the professional learning community agenda. So you can see with this one, I do use Google Docs for this one, and every grade level has the same template, and they're able to cut and paste this overview into their minutes. And then from there, they can add in specific things to their grade level. So every week when we have PLCs, I make this agenda ahead of time. That's going to have that basic format of what we're going to discuss during those PLCs. It may just have some important information in some of them, you know, that we're not really going to spend a lot of time discussing, but it's just something that we can just share real quickly in the meeting, because the big part of PLC obviously is talking about data or planning or discussing instruction. And so you can see we always have that item first on every PLC agenda, but these are ones that are sent out to the PLCs in advance. Try to give it to them at least a day in advance, as I shared earlier, and that way they can plan and make sure they have all the materials ready to bring with them if we're discussing data and they need whatever kind of data it is we're going to discuss that week. So those are the three organizational tools that I use with my staff to help make sure that our staff meetings inside the school building go really well. And that's when we have in-person meetings. The third part of this presentation is about flipped meetings. And this is something that I started right when I became principal, was flipping meetings because I had gone to a presentation at a technology EdCamp kind of thing down in Bowling Green, and Mr. Will King, for any of you that know him, he's in Bowling Green Independent Schools. He had done a presentation on flipping meetings. He was principal at Bowling Green High School at the time, I believe, and just talked a lot about how much his staff valued having flipped meetings on time at times of the year when they're just really super busy. And being, of course, a high school principal, he had a lot of people that did extracurriculars, and having an after-school meeting was just a little bit too much sometimes after all that, you know, practicing for the sports and the extracurriculars, and then we have to do an after-school meeting too, you know, and you got to have time as a teacher to, you know, spend time with your family and do things that are important to you as well. And I think we value that now even more after the pandemic. We see that everybody does need to take time for themselves, and flipped meetings are one of the ways that you can offer teachers more time for themselves, where we're not have to sit in a meeting for an hour and a half after school to get that information. So these are the kind of meetings you can flip. You can really flip any meeting, but why use it? Good time management. People can attend on their own time when it's good for them. So if I record it on a Tuesday, I say you have until Friday to watch it. That means, you know, if I'm a busy mom and my baby wakes me up at 4 o'clock in the morning for a feeding and I'm having trouble getting back to sleep, I can watch that video then if I want to. Or if I'm a football coach after school and, you know, I don't have time to watch it after school, maybe I can watch it during my planning one day when I don't have another meeting scheduled. So they can watch it on their own time. There's no more excuse to miss a meeting, essentially. It also models use of technology, which before the pandemic was pretty important to do, although now I think everybody's pretty good, especially teachers, with Screencast and using Google Meet and that kind of thing. But when we started using flipped meetings, you know, several years ago, this was a great way to model the use of technology. It's great for auditory and visual learners, and staff can watch and rewatch the info. So a lot of times when we do a flip meeting, I'll do like a little mini training on something that I've had a lot of people ask questions about. So like recently, during an NTI day, which I'm sure everybody's having lots of fun with those right now. One of the things I ask my staff to do on NTI days is if they have a parent contact, I want them to record that at Infinite Campus. Well, Infinite Campus recently did an update to the parent contact log. And so in our district anyway, I'm sure it was statewide as well, but so I did a little mini lesson inside a flipped faculty meeting on how to record parent contacts. Well, if you forgot how to do that with a flipped meeting, you have the ability to go back and watch and rewatch that video as many times as you need to see that information. And it ensures a consistent message. If I talk about the same topics all day in a PLC, I'm going to say that information 6 or 7 different times. And by the 6th or 7th time I say it, I've probably got it down to just like 1 or 2 sentences instead of maybe the 3 or 4 paragraphs I started with in the first PLC. And maybe those people aren't getting that consistent message that I gave those earlier PLCs. But with a flipped faculty meeting, everybody's hearing everything the same way. And, you know, again, if the staff are saying, well, I think she said this, or I think she said that, we'll just go back and watch the video and see what she said. So there's that consistency solved with flipped meetings as well. So the content, got to keep them simple and short. Adult attention spans are about 20 minutes or less. So this is a 30-minute session, so we'll be looking for everybody to lose attention here in about 2 minutes. But you never want to have a flip meeting that is more than 20 minutes of content if you can help it. Now, there are times when you have to. I mean, we've all sat in webinars that were hours long, and we know how hard it is for us to keep our attention in those kind of sessions, which is one thing we love about EdCamp today, because the sessions are short and sweet. And so we can take little nuggets of information, and that's what a flip faculty meeting should do as well, is take short little bits of information, cover simple concepts. Don't use a flipped meeting to tackle something that's really complex, like staffing allocations. That would not be a cool concept for a flipped meeting, because that's something where people are really invested in that kind of discussion. So we want to always keep it something that's really simple information that needs to go out really quickly. So you need to find a screencast tool that works for you. Almost everybody should have one by now with the pandemic over the last couple of years, but if you don't, my personal favorite is Screencastify. If you're making short videos, like less than 10 minutes, then you can get Screencastify and use it for free, although that time is going down a little bit every time I use it on the free one. So I do go ahead and pay for the paid version for the year because I use it quite a bit. And if you're going to do a lot of flip meetings, then Screencastify, or even a lot of training videos for people, like showing them how to use Infinite Campus or showing them how to use some other technology program, then paying a Screencastify membership is worth it. Some districts even pay for Screencastify for all their staff. So check into that before you pay for it if you're in a big district that might have the money to do that. And then also, if you're in the Chrome web store and you're picking up Screencastify, some other great tools to use for flip meetings are Padlet, TweetDeck, and Google Keep. So you can go ahead and pick those extensions up while you're there, because there's some that you can use for flip faculty meetings as well. So you want to create your slideshow. And we've already talked about how to do that. A slideshow for a flip meeting, you want to keep it that same organizational way that you keep your regular meetings. So if I'm having a flip meeting this year, I'm using that black background with out of this world leaders, and still going to have that information in that same format that I would use if I was having an in-person meeting. And a great place to get cool slides, like the ones I'm using today with the really cool fairies and magic stuff behind it, is slidescarnival.com. Slidecarnival.com is a great resource to find lots of free slide templates that are already very beautiful, and you don't have to spend your time thinking about how to make them look nice. So if you're ever doing a presentation, or you're looking for a great template for your own school's slideshows for meetings, slidescarnival.com has a lot of great options for that are completely free. And then you need to decide, how are you going to prove that people attended your flipped meeting? Because you can have a video out there, but maybe nobody actually watches it. So we always have some kind of proof to show that we did in fact attend our flipped meeting. It could be that you have a Google Doc, or you use Google Keep and have a shared Google Keep, and everybody has to answer a question or collaborate on that document in some way. You can use a Google form. Of course, we're all, again, teachers are really savvy with those after all these years of NTI. but that's another way to collect a lot of information really quickly. You could use Padlet, which if you've never used that before, it's just kind of like a big Post-it note page on a desktop, and everybody gets their own Post-it note and answers a question. So that's another great tool there. If everyone on your staff has a Twitter account, you could have a little tweet a response to the faculty meeting with a specific hashtag, and then you can just search that hashtag to make sure everyone participated. You could use like a back channel, something like today's meet, and have them answer a question there. Even creating a Facebook group. If your staff has a Facebook group where everybody, shares fun stuff within your school, you can use that to share, something about from the flip meeting. So there's lots of different ways to make sure that people have attended the meeting. Now, the big thing is recording it. So you might want to write yourself a script. Maybe you're better unscripted and you just want to talk from the slides. You might want to do a practice or a run through before you actually record. But here's the thing. If you're a perfectionist and you think that everything that you say on that video needs to be absolutely perfect, don't go back and listen to your own recording, because you're going to spend hours trying to make sure that it's just perfect. And you'll record it multiple times, and then it'll just frustrate you, and you've lost time that you're trying to save for your staff members. So don't overthink the recording of it. Just talk like you would normally talk in front of people. Yeah, you're going to make some mistakes. Yeah, there might be some background music in the background, or your kids screaming if you're making it at home or whatever, but that's life and it's real. And so don't overthink those kind of things. Just get it recorded and get it out there. But there's some step-by-step directions on how to use Screencastify. But again, most of us have decided on how to do that. Now, if you use Screencastify, it'll save it in your Google Drive automatically, and then you can just share that link with everybody and they'll be able to watch it. But you can also upload a screencast to YouTube. Just make sure that you check your settings. I always make sure that my flip faculty meetings are unlisted. I don't need the whole public knowing our faculty meeting information. So I have them unlisted where it's only shared, like you can only view it if you have the link. And so then the staff members can see it that way. You could even make a playlist on YouTube of all your flip faculty meetings and then just share that playlist link that's also unlisted with your staff. And then you could even, if you're going to allow comments on your YouTube video, that could be a way that they prove that they watched it as well, is to give a comment or a rating right there inside of YouTube if they have a YouTube account, which with Google, everybody does. Then you send out an email or calendar invite with the meeting members and give them access to your video, and ta-da, you've got your flip meeting ready to go. So those were my 3 big meeting tips that make things go smoothly for us. And we've got about 4 minutes left if anyone has any questions.
Thank you for such a great presentation. That was awesome.
Thank you,
and
Renee.
We do have about 4 minutes if there are any questions.
Shelley, I have a question.
Sure.
What kinds of, I'm intrigued by this flipped meeting idea. I've obviously heard of it and flipped classroom. I'm looking for any way to save my teachers' time and be, I guess, respectful of their time. Can you give me some examples of some content that you've included in your flip meetings? Like, how do you decide what you're going to include and what you want to do face to face?
Right. That's a great question. So anything that's a big decision where we need to discuss quite a bit and we want that discussion to be open and honest, I don't do that in a flipped meeting. We always have committee meetings in person for those kind of big discussions. But if it's just information, a flip meeting is a perfect opportunity for everyone to hear all the same information the same way. The time I used it the most in the last couple of years was with all of the COVID information. So every time the guidelines change for how long do we have to quarantine and how many days do I need to stay home if I get COVID, and can I use my sick days, or do those COVID days still exist? Those are perfect topics because it's just straight up factual information and the answer's the same for everybody. So those are the kind of things that I try to send out via flipped meeting. And just make, that's just information that's gonna be the same no matter what, like making our NTI plan for the school, like what's everybody's roles and responsibilities gonna be on a day that we're on NTI. I've already made those decisions for everybody. Now I'm gonna just share them with you in a flipped meeting, and so that you can see exactly what you're expected to do. So anything that's expectations or rules that are all gonna be the same for everyone, those are things that are great for flipped meetings. And they're great to prove that you've watched it because they allow for a lot of opportunity for questions, like multiple choice questions and true and false statements, that kind of stuff. So that's easy for people to be able to go back to the video and find the answer to.
Thank you.
Welcome. Any other questions, or anybody want to see how to make anything in particular?
And your presentation is included with the resources?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, for this conference.
Mhm.
And also this session is being recorded. So if anyone needed to hear the information again, they'll have the opportunity to do so following the conference.
Great. Well, if there's no more questions, Renee, I guess we can let everybody go to lunch.
All right.